Andrew, so another day of protests on the street. Tell us what's been happening today.
Well, in brief, Darren, yet more anti-government protests. I'm here in the centre of Hong Kong, on Hong Kong Island itself, and this protest is just beginning now, and we're expecting tens of thousands to gather here. Already, though, there's been another protest in another part of Hong Kong, in the New Territories, in the northeast of Hong Kong, in an area called Chung Kwang O, and there we've probably seen tens of thousands of people marching down the street. So far, that one's been entirely peaceful. This one's just beginning. But these protests now are happening day after day after day with no real end in sight. I've been reporting on them for the last, 3 days? This is my fourth. There'll be more protests on Monday when there's also a call for a general strike across Hong Kong. So none of this, Darren, shows any sign of dying down.
And Andrew, there were confrontations with the police last night. You were in the thick of it when I spoke to you. But just to remind our viewers, yesterday we also saw pro-China and pro-police rallies as well.
We did. Well, the events that we were talking about last night, Darren, when there was a big crowd that started off in the centre of Kowloon, a shopping area of Hong Kong, that was an authorised protest, just like this one is, in fact. But then that morphed into something altogether different, and more people arrived. Again, probably tens of thousands by my estimate of people dressed in camouflage. They had hoods on, they were carrying tear gas masks, they also had helmets, most of them. They were expecting confrontation with the police, and certainly they got it as the night wore on. They started attacking a police station in that area, and the police eventually came out, used tear gas, cleared the crowd. Not massively violent, I don't want to exaggerate it, and it was quite localised, but that does tend to be the pattern with these protests. But as you say, earlier, also on Saturday, there was a pro-police, pro-government rally. Very, very hard to get numbers on any of these things because everyone's estimates are very, very different. For example, the protest that I was at earlier on Saturday, the peaceful rally, well, the organisers say there were 120,000 people who took part in that. The police say it was 4,200, a 30-fold difference in the estimate of numbers. And then you look at the pro-government protest happening elsewhere in Hong Kong on Saturday. The organisers of that one say 120,000 people. The police say more like 40,000. But it's likely that the police is even exaggerating that number because, let's be honest, those people are coming out in support of the police. So really trying to get a steer on where the numbers are with these things is difficult. From what I've seen here on the ground, there are certainly more frequent anti-government protests, and from what I've seen, the numbers are much higher at the anti-government protests. But of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that they've got the majority of Hong Kongers on their side. It may just be that they feel they have the wind in their sails and they're coming out more frequently than a silent majority, perhaps, supporting the police and supporting Hong Kong's government, and by extension, Beijing, because Beijing is a big part in all this. And there are more and more rumours that Beijing is not going to stand for this kind of protest that much longer. Xinhua, the Chinese news agency very close to the government in Beijing, put out an editorial. I'll just read you a little bit of it. It says that the central government will not sit idly by and let this situation continue. So far, all these protests have been handled by Hong Kong's police. And although they've used tear gas and they've certainly used rubber bullets and they've certainly used batons, there haven't been that many injuries. There's certainly been no deaths. And in a sense, it's been handled relatively quietly. But there are more and more rumours that the People's Liberation Army of China might get involved in this in time. There is a garrison of the Chinese army here in Hong Kong. There are rumours, no more than that at the moment, that Chinese troops are also massing on the mainland side of the border, ready to come in if necessary. And an editorial like that from Xinhua suggests that that may happen at some stage. I don't want to exaggerate it. It may not be imminent. It may not happen at all. But that is certainly the sort of rumour that is flying around. Briefly, though, this rally, central Hong Kong, another going on in the suburbs. Who knows where this one will end up? The Beijing consulate's not the right word. What's the right word? The representation of Beijing here in Hong Kong, the building is very, very close to here, just a few hundred metres. They're not authorised, these people, to walk to it, but there are rumours that they may later on. That could get testy. And then on Monday, this general strike called for anyone who is fed up with the way the government is treating these protests and not responding to the protesters' demand. At the same time, 7 different anti-government protests are planned for Monday right across Hong Kong.
All right, Andrew Thomas there in Hong Kong. Andrew, thank you.